Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening based on your time zones. Thanks a lot for joining today's webinar on GS DevOps Mate, our free and open source toolkit for bringing conventional CI/CD to Salesforce. Now, before talking about the tool and getting more insights about it, a bit about myself and the super talented team behind DevOps Mate. I am Rohan Gore. I'm a technical architect in Groundswell Cloud Solutions, and I have been working here for almost 3 years now. I have been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for around 10 years, and apart from my love for designing systems that can scale and perform well, I'm a passionate full stack developer with a special place in my heart for JavaScript and DevOps, as you can see. Apart from Salesforce, I also keep playing around with other platforms and tech stacks like NodeJS, Docker, AWS, serverless, Slack apps, and Firebase, to name a few. Now, a bit about this awesome and fantastic place where I work, Groundswell. Founded in 2012, we have quickly become a trusted system integrator with a reputation for implementing unique and complex Salesforce solutions. We are a very diverse team committed to customer success with our office based out of one of the most beautiful cities on planet Earth, at least to me, Vancouver, Canada. And with that kind of a reputation, we were fortunate to work with enterprise customers having extremely large data volumes and complex business processes, thus resulting in a lot more code, customization, and metadata to be managed over the time. Now, traditionally, the DevOps processes in such organizations are built on the central idea that all of your metadata, be it code or config, is utilizing a version control system or a source control system. And thus, the CI/CD processes also revolves around that. And why it should be any different on Salesforce, right? Well, but we all know it's easier said than done, especially on the Salesforce platform. Due to the prior org-driven nature of the development, complex metadata, weird metadata structure, I still feel that fully automated source-driven deployments are still far-fetched. However, while working with clients and customers of this scale over the time, we have managed to solve the typical release-related issues like source control, efficiently managing source control, slower deployments, managing complex metadata, PR compliance, automation, etc. And I think that's the biggest reason we were able to come up with something like DevOps Mate. So with this, let's just start why we are here today. So we are here today to talk about how the DevOps Mate came into existence, some of the behind the scenes tech, and what motivated us to create it. And also we will touch base upon some of the inner workings. We will then do a quick demo and talk about the features and unique benefits, followed by a question and answer round. But before, again, I would say before getting into the details, let's have a look at what this tool is and some of its unique benefits and features at a high level. Okay, I'm so excited about just talking about the unique benefits and features that I forgot to tell that, hey, what is GS DevOps Mate? And I believe most of the audience is pretty technical here. So technically, it is a Docker image comprising of mainly a Node.js CLI wrapper around some core SFDX commands targeted towards continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment for Salesforce. I really want to highlight the fact here. All these commands are really targeted towards continuous integration, delivery, and deployment. And with that, let's quickly jump to the key features and unique benefits. Platform agnostic. Yes, GS DevOps Mate is platform agnostic. I'm going to talk a lot more about this. It's not only platform agnostic, it's to a great extent process agnostic, your metadata format agnostic. So yes. And if you ask me, one of the key takeaways from this webinar, I think this should be one. And obviously the second one should be it's free and open source. So the next thing is it's completely written in modern JavaScript. And again, we are going to talk about why and how of it. Now coming to the features, it's the first feature and one of my favorites is its ability to create Delta packages. We will talk about again in great details about this and show you in the demo as well. Then once you create the package, its ability to do the deployment and deployment validations of these packages, along with running test classes You can also run test classes on a scheduled basis. Now, a couple of things I want to highlight here is that you can run specific test classes, you can run local test classes, you can run all the test classes, and you can also define that, hey, I'm not okay with my build to pass just with 75%. I want 90%, or I'm crazy, I want 100%. That is also possible here. Then yes, basic things like easily creating scratch logs, deleting, and some management related commands. And one more thing is, again, second generation managed package creation. So with that, you can create second generation managed packages and unlock packages from the SFDX repo. And the last but not the least, and this is again one of my favorites. So this is not just the metadata retrieval based on a package XML from your repo. Yes, it does that as well. But what it does more is you can retrieve a change set, and then you can commit it to a feature branch. And also you can retrieve the full log, and it has its own lot of use cases like backup, audit, and monitoring and all that. I will try to cover some of these in the demo as well, and we'll talk in more details. So now I think it's the right time to start with how it all started. What's the story behind this tool, and what motivated us to get into this. So back in 2008, we were tasked with setting up a CI/CD for a huge enterprise customer with a goal to release their multi-cloud Salesforce implementation globally across 36 markets by 2020. And here are some of the things they wanted at high level, or I should say, here are some of the challenges they threw at us. So the project should be source driven, which means all the metadata, all the possible metadata from Salesforce to be version controlled. Second thing is, they wanted source or version control to be Git based, hosted on Bitbucket. Not exactly a challenge, but more kind of a requirement. Yes, this was a challenge where, as I said, they wanted all these all this development to happen parallelly for different markets. And the bigger challenge was they wanted all these releases to happen parallelly as well, independent of each other. And last, one of the another major things is, yes, they wanted automated CI/CD or automated continuous integration, and then deployments and delivery. So with all this, we were kind of at that time, we were fortunate enough that SFDX was just released and given its future, and it be specifically meant for source-driven development. We decided to go with SFDX format with multiple modules to support all these module-based releases from the single mono repo. But again, I want to highlight here, DevOps Mate is not something which just relies on SFDX format. It supports both MDAPI format and SFDX formats, except the second generation managed packaging, which we have not yet done. But apart from that, it's format agnostic. So I just want to show you guys this visual, which is a super simplified version of what typically we were supposed to do. So you can see here, these are some developers. They are making their changes, obviously creating scratch logs from a remote repo based on a remote repo, and committing their changes, pushing their changes. I hope you all can relate to this kind of a flow. And then what they wanted is that once the changes are there in the remote repo, it should be continuously tested. That continuous integration should happen on a CI or a QA org, and something like this, followed by upstream deployments to further orgs like QA, UAT staging, and production. Now, again, this sounds super simple. Just by looking at the visual, it's okay, fine. There must be something which Salesforce gives you, like Heroku, you do a git push and bam, your environment is ready or something. But the reality is, there are no such built-in integrations or anything. You have to rely on some CI/CD service or something, and still, there are a lot of gaps there. So, yes, we were posed with this. Okay, now this is what we have to do. We have to solve something. And I think this is the point where I really want to talk about like how we approach the implementation. So with this, we were aware of the fact that the customer was using Azure DevOps as their CI/CD service for their for their rest of the technology stack. So they were using other technologies as well at the time. So we thought, okay, let's try to utilize bare SFDX commands. There are some great commands in SFDX which you can actually use, and then yes, that's what our initial thoughts were, and then we started utilizing those SFDX commands on Azure DevOps. Now, some of you might be thinking, what do I mean by utilizing their SFDX with Azure DevOps? So just to give you guys a little more insight, in most of these CI/CD services, there is a standard way to define pipelines or flows and things like that. Some of them do give some UI as well, but YAML is one of the standard way to define that. So what you are seeing here is a YAML file, which is, it's not exactly the full YAML file for the whole pipeline, which we define, but it's just a snippet of it, in which what we are doing is we are doing a pull request validation or a merge request validation, whatever you want to call that. And I just want to highlight a few things here. So at the top here, what you are seeing is we are just installing a few dependencies and all. I will talk more about it later. And in between, you can see there is this script where we are trying to create a scratch log, then pushing everything from the repo, running Apex test, deleting the scratch log, depends. But yeah, that's what you typically do at a high level. And down at the bottom, you are seeing that we are trying to create a, not exactly create, but we are just trying to do a deployment, again on a CI box or a target QA box, deployment validation, to be very precise. So once all this is done, we are calling it a pull request validation. You can have steps like your static code analysis and probably your linting and all those things as well. But yeah, this is just a very minimized version of what we are trying to achieve there. And within few days of testing, we realized that there are a few issues there. There are some problems. So first one is, if you notice that there is this SFDX force source push command. Now, what this command typically does is it considers everything from your repo and tries to push it into your scratch log. Okay, this was taking. So we realized that for such a huge project, this is eventually, when the code base is going to grow, this is going to take a lot of time. So that was our first thing. That was our first issue. The second one is, if you come all the way down, you might be seeing that, or you would be seeing that we are very statically mentioning some of the modules and doing the force source deploy command. At that time, sandboxes were not supporting the push command and all. So we were just trying to do this with source deploy command. And what you are seeing here is just these 4 modules from the sample gallery app by Salesforce. But imagine instead of these 4, there would be 10, and which can eventually grow to 15. So we want some way to dynamically do it. And also, the bigger problem, which was even kind of a showstopper for us, if you see, these are modules, and then there is, let's say there is this base module in which there is a change, and we are just doing a deployment validation. So we are not actually committing those changes. Now, if we try to deploy the second module, which has a change which relies on this base module's change, yeah, we are kind of stuck, because those changes had not yet reached. And now the second module, which relies on this base module, is definitely bound to fail. So what we did is, initially we wrote some thrown away bash scripts. We were combining all this together and just trying to do a deployment validation. But the biggest problem of all this is, all this was super slow, because all this was slow, and we were sure that it's going to be super slow as the code base is going to increase. Now imagine 10 developers continuously doing pull requests, and we want the validations to be super quick rather than something like 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 50 minutes. So we definitely can't live like that. So what we did actually is, we went back to our drawing board, and we tried to come up with some of the primary building blocks of CI/CD based on our prior experience with some other customers, and based on our experience on some other tech stacks as well. And what we thought is there a way like we can come on some common grounds, the way typical CI/CD services works for other technology stacks, and try to figure out how Salesforce is different, and still try to solve that problem in a way where it would be very similar the way we do it on other tech stacks. So these are some of the primary actions we realized. So first is, obviously, in any build, as part of any build step, what happens is you create a binary file or an artifact or a jar for Java guys, for all those JavaScript folks out there. You bundle everything. Similarly, in Salesforce, there is something equivalent, not exactly same, but something equivalent is a MDAPI deployable package, which you can validate against an org. Now that's the difference. You can't actually say that, hey, this package is really good, unless you have some way to connect to an org, try to do a deployment validation on that org, and then only you can even run test classes and all. So that's where a big difference here. So we definitely need a way to authenticate as part of the deployment validation steps. Just some easy way to authenticate as part of the deploy action itself. And also, even if you are relying on a scratch org kind of a validation, an easy way to authenticate to a dev hub and create a scratch org and things like that. So these were some things. And once you have this package, obviously, as I was saying, you have to do a deployment validation on Salesforce. So that's one of the thing. And again, you have to deploy or do a quick deploy. So we realized, I mean, if we are able to just somehow do this in a very generic way, we may be able to solve most of the, or at least a big chunk of CI/CD release related problems on the Salesforce. So with that, we realized that there are these three important steps if we can solve three important actions. One is authentication as part of scratch org creation, authentication as part of deployment, then deployment validation, and yes, the important thing is creating this MDAPI package. So with this, we wanted to make sure that all this is super scalable, extendable, manageable. So what we thought is, let's try to do this in some sophisticated programming language, or at least a programming language where we can handle it gracefully. So the first thought, or the first language which struck me is JavaScript with Node.js as a runtime, and we have our fair reasons for that. So I'm not sure how many of you know about Jeff Atwood, this guy here, but I'm sure all of you know about Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange, and he is the person behind these fantastic places. So back in 2007, Mr. Atwood stated that any application that can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript. Interesting. Actually, I pretty much convinced with that. And we need not to go outside this Salesforce. Just look into our own ecosystem. All the way starting from Aura and then going to LWC and SFDX even are actually Node.js modules, which is basically JavaScript. And recently Salesforce announced about Evergreens, if you guys have heard of it. So this is again function and compute as a service. So now the thing here is in Evergreens, the Evergreen functions or the Salesforce functions, name doesn't matter, but what they are going to support, the first runtime they're going to support is Node.js, not Apex or Java. So first language they're going to support is JavaScript. Well, enough of that. We here in Groundswell are also a big fan of Node.js and JavaScript, and I think those were big enough reasons for us to go with JavaScript. Don't you think so? Well, anyways, jokes apart, I think we have more reasons and some good enough reasons. So if you look, one of the most popular programming languages, not only in outside Salesforce, but in the Salesforce ecosystem, is JavaScript. I mean, after Apex, if you ask any Salesforce developer, like, hey, which language after Apex you are most comfortable, and probably the answer you're gonna get is JavaScript. So yeah, that's a big reason, because I wanted to make sure, or we wanted to make sure that this tool or whatever we are gonna write should be manageable from the developers, from people from our own ecosystem first. So yes, that was a big reason. Low barrier to entry. Yes, JavaScript can be run from all the way from browsers to your devices like Raspberry Pi and anything. Both Node.js and JS has an awesome community, battle tested NPM modules. Node.js has probably has the highest number of modules, I think, compared to any other programming languages. So why to reinvent the wheel? And last but not the least, SFDX itself is a Node.js module, is basically a group of Node.js modules. So yeah, written completely in JavaScript. So writing an extension or a wrapper on top of it in JavaScript itself seems very natural to us, and that's why we started building something in JavaScript itself. And yes, we started coding those actions, we started developing, and we came up with these 4 commands. There are few more, like really few more. Probably in total we have 8 commands, I believe. But yeah, initially we came up with 3 commands, and then SF retrieve came in. So sforgs create delete, as you can see, this command and this subcommand. So you can create or delete a scratch org. Authentication is pre-built or baked into this command. SF packages, again, I'm going to talk in more details, like about this. So yeah, but what it's gonna do is it's gonna create a package out of an MDAPI library, or sorry, yeah, MDAPI repo or source repo or a multi-module source repo. Then SF deploy command is again authentication pre-baked in, and then it can take your SF packages. So it can take your package from the SF packages command and deploy, or do a deployment validation, both the things, based on some parameter changes. And SF retrieve is the command behind things like retrieval of change sets, full log retrieval, and all. So with this, I think let's move to, as I said, I really want to talk about a little more about SF packages, though each of these commands deserve their own talks, I would say. But SF packages is something I really want to highlight today. So as I said, it can create a full package out of the whole repo, but it can create a delta as well based on the particular commits or based on your latest commit. So to understand that better, let's imagine you have these n components in your repository, and component 3 and component 5 got changed in the latest commit, and component 6 is completely new component. So what this command does is it can create a package just considering these 3 components, and now yeah, you can deploy this package. So yes, this is a big time saver, especially in orgs where you are already deploying, where you are deploying continuously. So yeah, where all the dependencies are there, you can just deploy the change. You can just do a deployment validation quickly, and you can deploy the change. So this is fine. But what about net new scratch orgs or net new orgs? So yeah, for a net new org, you have to deploy everything, and for scratch orgs, for scratch orgs, obviously, if you're in MDAPI format, you have to deploy everything. But if you are in if you are in a SFDX format, there are some more options. So the first use case I want to talk about here is, let's say there are a few changes just in the base module. So what it does is, yes, it considers your that base module, the whole base module, because now the org is completely empty. So it has to consider that whole base module, and it's gonna create a package out of it. Well, that sounds okay, but this is not the true use case. I mean, typically what happens is you have, let's say some developer is making change in a module 10, and module 10 relies on module 3. Module 3 depends on base module. So you have dependencies, you have transitive dependencies as well. So what this command is capable of is it can basically create an MDAPI format folder for you, which is deployable. Now, the philosophy behind this is that in most of the use cases, we realize that you don't want to test or do a deployment validation against the modules in which there is no change. So it doesn't make sense to create the whole bundle out of all the modules. So yeah, as long as you have these dependencies well defined in your SFDX project.json, the way you define for unlock packages, this tool will take care of it. But again, I'm not saying you have to have unlock packages for it or it has any dependency on that. It's just you have to define the dependencies in that way. So that's what it is. Now there are few things here. Like it looks simple at the outset, but there are so many things happening behind the scene. Like the metadata has its own weirdness and all the things. Like if there's a change in an Apex class, you have to make sure that you have to consider the XML. If there's a change in VF, same thing, and vice versa. Similarly, if there is just one change in an LWC module or in a LWC component or in an Aura component or Aura bundle, you have to consider the whole bundle. Otherwise, it will end up overriding everything, or it might be a deployment failure. So yes, there are many such edge cases we are trying to cover here. And then yes, eventually what it does is it gives you a nice Delta package which you can feed back to the SF deploy command, and it just accepts it. Now the thing here is one more benefit we realized is many of these CI/CD services, they give you something known as Artifactory, and you can basically make this package just say that, hey, consider this package an artifact, and then there are simple commands to do that. Just a single command will just make that as an artifact, and then you can use that artifact to look into what is there inside. You can use it for monitoring purposes, and more than monitoring, you can use it for a kind of an audit or something. I will show that in a demo as well. So with this, Now coming back to our YAML file. So if you see, we have this sketch.org validation step, which was again a part of the bigger snippet I have shown you. And uh, once we started utilizing our tooling and replace the commands, you can see there is some more. It's cleaner. So because it's cleaner, it's a more. I mean, I would say it's easy to maintain as well. And again, if you go into the deployment validation on CI org step, again, you can see a lot more sanity in YAML. So with all this, we were like super happy. And what we were thinking is, I mean, we were at this kind of a stage where instead of running bare SFDX commands, we were running this module. Yeah, and well, it's not fast enough. So some of you would have, or I'm sure many of you even would have guessed what's the reason. So even explaining why it was slow, I really want to explain about how these typical CI/CD services work. So what happens is they don't assume all these CI/CD services, since they are supposed to work with, they're very generic. They're supposed to work with different technology stacks. They don't assume like what are your dependencies and all. So what they do is they allow you to download those dependencies, install it in their VM, and then run your commands, something like this. So yeah, if you rely on Node.js, it will download, or probably even it has Node.js, it has to install it. Yes, you have to download DX from npm and install, and same with your, so that those initial commands which I was showing, installing dependencies, this was taking a lot of time. So what we were looking for is, we were looking for something which is somehow we can just package all this together in a lightweight machine kind of a thing, and so we need not to install all this again and again, and can just do it. Another options we have is we can use a VM, where a pre-baked VM, but Azure DevOps, the cloud VM doesn't support that. So either you have to manage your own VMs. Okay, definitely don't want to go there. We definitely don't want to get into those maintenance things and all. So we were aware of Docker, and I started looking more into it and realized that Docker is the solution for our problem. And I think with some more research, I was really very convinced that this is the way to go. So Docker containers are not only replacing VMs at many web applications, but they are the de facto on many CI/CD services as build runtimes as well. We will talk about that, but obviously, and the reasons are simple. Docker has, I mean, its speed is a small size, ease of reproducibility, testing and maintenance. I mean, all these things to come together. Now, obviously, we can't talk about why of all this. That's kind of beyond the scope of this webinar. But in short, it is way faster. So what we did is we started Dockerizing our application. And once I Dockerized it, I basically pushed it to Docker Hub. Now, some of you might be thinking, what is Docker Hub? Docker Hub is just a registry to, so it's not exactly a repository, it's a registry. So it does more than what a repository does. So like npm is a registry for Node.js modules and things like that. So once you have your Docker image on a registry like Docker Hub, you can refer that image back in the CI/CD services, and then that's pretty much it, actually. So what I started doing is I created a connection in Azure DevOps for this private Docker registry, and rather than, if you see on your left, we are installing all this. Rather than all that, you can see a lot more sanity again in the YAML. So YAML is getting cleaner and cleaner with all these steps as we are eventually moving. So what you're seeing is, yes, we are just referencing this Docker image. Now, the way to refer a Docker image varies from CI/CD service. So based on a CI/CD service, but it's pretty much the same everywhere. So with this, I just want to, once I did it, it was, rather than installing everything, it was just basically getting this image and just spinning up a container, and then started firing our commands, which it's supposed to do. Now, the thing here is, again, one of the great things about many of these CI/CD services is the cache your Docker images and all, which makes it even faster. And yes, why it's faster? Some of you might be thinking that, hey, you are still downloading Docker Hub image and you are still downloading your Docker image. So how it's faster? Again, I would say that's a talk on it itself. But yes, it is faster. Many of you would even know why it is. So in short, we were expecting some performance gains, but we were not expecting this. So just installing all these dependencies was taking around 7 minutes on Azure DevOps for us, and 6 minutes sometimes, but yeah, it's around those numbers. But the moment we changed it to this pattern, it was always under a minute, 30 seconds, 40 seconds most of the time, or even less. So we really got excited with all this. So what we did is we eventually ended up testing this image on some other CI/CD services as well, like Bitbucket pipelines, then Circle CI, and CodeFresh. So everywhere the performance was astonishing and even better. So yeah, you will see that in the demo as well. And this is how the GS DevOps Mate was born. So you can see I made some changes here, like rather than Azure DevOps, now it's any CI/CD service. I'm saying any Docker image repo, and probably I should have written any CI/CD flow as well, because so it's agnostic in many terms. With that, I really want to quickly move to the demo, and then probably we will talk more about few of the things. So in the demo, what I'm going to talk about, or what I'm going to show you guys, is a feature branch Git workflow pipeline. And in that, I will also show a change set retrieval functionality, followed by a full log retrieval and backup. Now, the thing here is, some of you might be wondering, what is this feature branch Git workflow pipeline? I mean, it's nothing. It's like I'm just going to create a feature branch. Actually, I'm not going to create a feature branch. I will rely on change set retrieval. But typically, what you do is you create a feature branch. I'm showing VS Code here, but again, it's completely agnostic. You can use whatever ID you want. You don't use ID, you use Vim, or you use command line. Up to you, up to the developers how they want to create a feature branch, make their changes, commit their changes, push their changes, and once their changes are pushed, what happens is they have to create a pull request. Once the pull request is created, the pull request validation should start. Once the pull request validation is good, someone is gonna review that, approve it. Once it's approved and merged, it will again start a deployment. Now the deployment can be controlled or can be fully automated. That's what we are going to show as part of it. But fun fact, we are not going to use ID or anything, to save some time here and also to show you the change set thing. So for that, I am going to stop sharing for a moment, and so you might not be seeing anything, and I'm switching to a different screen now. So give me a moment. Here is screen. Yes, so here we are. And yes, one more thing I forgot to mention here. We are going to do this whole demo with Bitbucket as a Git repo and Bitbucket pipelines as a CI/CD service. It's a nice, simple, complementary service which comes with Bitbucket. So yeah, I thought I will just do this on that. So here I am in my sandbox. So yes, I'm an admin, and I want to make a change in a market layout. So let me quickly make a change in the market layout. Okay, plain old classic. Yeah. Anyways, I love classic. Being a developer, I still feel it's faster. So yes, I made this change to the market layout and saving it. So I pulled this predicted booking rate, and just to showcase you guys that okay, I'm gonna make a change in a class as well. Okay, this looks good. Reservation manager controller test. And okay, well, I have to again go back to classic. That's perfectly fine. And yeah, this is not your typical flow. Typically, the classes developers change in their ID or something, but just to show that the artifact is gonna create or something. So yeah, I'm just change this for DDM demo, or I'm like something like 5. Okay, so I made these 2 changes. Now, what I'm gonna do is, if you see, I have this change set here. So I've already prepared for you guys. So yes, it has market layout and reservation manager control test. Now the thing here is I have not uploaded it, and you need not to. You can keep using the same chain set. I mean, your admin or someone can keep using the same name set, same chain set. And so GDM demo is the name. So what I'm gonna do, or what this admin has to do, is just let the DevOps person know that, hey, I have this chain set. Can you pull it for me or something? Or if I have the access, like I have right now, I'm gonna go back to my Bitbucket pipelines, and I am going to get Bitbucket pipelines, and here is the pipelines view. I will click on run pipeline. Now these things vary based on your CI/CD service, but most of these services give you a way to run your pipeline on a manual basis or on a scheduled basis. So what I'm going to do is, since I want to create a feature branch from the master, okay, am I sharing my screen? Yes. Sorry, I just got confused there. So here there is pull and commit my chain set. So this is a custom pipeline which is going to help me here. So GDM demo is the name of the, and commit message is okay 5, and branch name is GDM demo 5. I'm going to run it. Now this change, this name, custom pipeline name can be anything. It just depends on you. You want, it has to be configured in your YAML file. So yes, all this is configurable. These variables up to you. You can even give something like a username, password, and but yeah, careful about that. I won't say that you have to use username password based authentication. JOT is better. So yeah, that's something I would leave up to your organization. Now I started pulling this chain set. So what's happening behind the scenes at a high level? Again, there are a lot of nitty-gritties to it as well. But what's happening at a high level is you can retrieve a chain set. But before that, what it is doing is it's creating a feature branch, and then it's retrieving the chain set. And then it's gonna commit that chain set into this feature branch. So, and once it's committed, you would be able to see that the feature branch will get created as well. So let's wait for this. Wow. So should be happening really quickly. So guys, yep, it started retrieving, and you can also check what all is happening here, and there is this what the tool is doing behind the scenes. So you can configure it. So it's now pushing this change. Okay, awesome. The first thing is there. So what I'm going to do is I will refresh this branches view. I will go. So here we are in the branches view. Now, yes, my feature branch is there. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pull request. So yes, you might be thinking, hey, you have not even showed us whether our changes are there or not. Yeah, I just want to save some time because we are going to see that here as well in the diff view. And these things, again, vary based on your services. So yeah, I will go to the diff. Awesome. Yeah, this is good. Expected, not a big deal, but yes, it's there. So I don't have any reviewers. I'm creating a pull request. So now my changes, I've created a pull request against my changes, and here is the pull request. So it's loading. Yeah. And what it should do is it should kick off a pull request validation. Yes, it did. It did kick off a pipeline. Okay, let's quickly switch back to this pipeline because it's going to be super fast, I'm sure. So I'm closing this one and I'm switching back to this one. This is running. Okay. Yes, it is indeed. So yeah, it's creating the artifact which I was talking about, and it's doing a deployment validation. So yeah, the artifact package, yeah, because it just has to create those two changes. So it's super fast. Now the thing here is, I really want to highlight, I'm not showing the scratch awk creation process because scratch awk creation sometimes takes time. That's not in my control. It's up to Salesforce. So sometimes it takes time and I don't have enough content to talk about when scratch awk creation is gonna happen. So I just kind of skipped it, but I would love to show you guys probably in some blog post or how that happens, and probably just after the webinar sometime in a demo video or something. Okay, thanks Slack. So I got a Slack notification as well. Something happened, but before that, I really want to show you what is this whole artifacts thing is. Okay, so this was I was talking about. So I'm gonna download this artifact. I'm gonna go back to show in Finder. Not go back. I'm going to the show in Finder, and I'm just gonna double click on this. So this is a zip, and let's see what's all in it. So yeah, we have a zip folder, and we have, okay, yes, it seems it's nice. So let me open my VS Code as well here quickly. Okay, I have an integration with my VS Code where I can see the pipeline as well. Well, that's not something. Yeah, let's see what's there. Perfect. So the package XML is there, and if so, that looks good. So that's what this artifact thing is. Now this artifact, yeah, you probably know what I meant by this artifact all the time. So with this, I will move back to my pull request. Now I am gonna be an approver because I don't have anyone else here. So I'm gonna look into my own pull request and see that whether it's passed in the pipeline status. And if it's passed, I think I should consider it for a code review. So yes, it looks good. Yes, the change also looks good. It's just a comment change. Perfect. I'm gonna approve this, and I'm gonna merge it as well. So yep, a squash merge would be better. I'm merging it. Yep, once it's merged, it should kick off the actual deployment pipeline on the QA org. So we don't have any CI org. We are just, okay, I clicked something else. No. I want to see you pipeline. No. Pipelines. Yeah, so here it is. So it's trying to deploy in a QA org, but before that it's deploying. Let me quickly switch back to the org in which it's deploying. I'm refreshing this. I hope. Yes, it's deploying. And you can see the validation just happened some time back, 11:48. So awesome. And again, the notification. I really want to show you guys what I meant by this whole notification thing. So I hope you can see my Slack screen as well. So what you're seeing here is these two nice notifications. Sometimes it sounds like, okay, it's a nice thing, but even I was thinking when I initially did it is like, okay, it sounds okay. But what I really found it beautiful over the time, because one of the great things about continuous integration is that continuous feedback, which you should be giving to your developers. So this custom notification service, which we have written on top of our commands, like SFDX command has this notification as well built in. So what it does is if something fails, it gives you a nice list of failures, the list. So it gives you 10, but yeah, 10 failures, because that's I realize there is a size limit. So you can go to the pipeline, you can go to the build and check other failures as well. But what we realized over the time is developers are taking this feedback really seriously and quickly fixing their feature branch. And what I want to highlight here is this feature branch is not, so when pull request validation happens, the feature branch is actually not merged to the master. So once they make changes to a feature branch, again, it will kick off the pull request validation. So this makes this whole loop makes this process super efficient. This is just one of the flows. I'm not saying this is the way to work. DevOps tool doesn't dictate any of it. It's very less opinionated in it. So completely up to you how you want to use those commands, but this is one of the ways we are using it in many of our projects. With this, I really quickly want to move to the next part of the demo, which is I'm showing here is, you can see I'm on a backup branch and I'm continuously taking backup. So I did a backup yesterday. And then I did a backup a couple of days before as well. Now what I want to do is I want to go back to the pipelines view, and I want to show you how I want to close this one, how we can take a backup on a branch of our choice. So you can schedule a backup from here. So you can click on a new schedule. You can schedule on an hourly basis. You can schedule, I would not suggest that, but you can schedule on a daily basis, 5 times a day, twice a day. We are doing it for a couple of customers. We are doing for our internal log as well. So right now I'm going to do it custom, like I'm just going to fire it. So yep, I want to do a custom. So that's the name of my custom pipeline I want to run. I clicked on run. Again, these UI interfaces are going to vary based on your CI/CD services, but most of them give you these kind of features. So yeah, now what it is doing is this process takes time depending on the size of your org. So if you have a really huge org, obviously it's going to take a time. And if you're more than 10K components, we are still working on that. I have some solutions, but yeah, not coded yet fully. So that's not part of the release yet. But yes, otherwise it works. The backup is started. It started taking backup on that backup branch. So yeah, it's going to generate. It's going to pull everything, going to generate a package XML. Also, you can ignore few things based on a ignore JSON file we have. It's a very custom file. You can even configure the name of your file. So a lot of configuration options there. So yeah, it's doing a backup. Once the backup is done, you should be seeing that commit. And this backup I am doing from the QA org. So what should come as part of this recent changes is those two changes which we have deployed. And let's say there is some other change also in the QA org that should also get picked up. I'm just waiting for this to run because yeah, it's not that big a org. It just should be fast. So this is basically the backup functionality. Let's wait for it. And yeah, meanwhile, I forgot to mention that feel free to ask your questions. I cannot see any questions here. Few of my colleagues, fantastic colleagues here, are just gonna collate it for me. I would be answering them in the end. So yeah, it's checking out a Git backup branch, which means the retrieval is done, and you can come on. So yep, it's retrieving. Checking out is taking a time. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I'm just gonna refresh this branch view here, and let's see whether the latest commit is there with the latest changes which we have deployed in QA. Okay, yes, perfect. Here we are. Okay, yes, those two changes got pulled up. Only those two changes. I mean, I'm not saying it pulled up everything, but since these are the only two changes since the last commit, so yeah, it's showing. So we are just kind of cleverly using it. Yes, there are a few things like how we want to handle delete and all. So yes, there is a work in progress, but yeah, that doesn't sound far away. So yes, that would be here soon. So with that, I really want to switch back again to my webinar, basically the slide deck, and talk about a little more. So yes, here I am, application window, share. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, I will start this presentation again. So yeah, again, really want to quickly touch base the unique features and benefits as well. So key features and unique benefits. Now you know how it is platform agnostic to a certain extent, and it's not just platform agnostic. So what I was showing you was on a MDAPI repo, but you can do all that backup, retrieval, everything on a SFDX repo, and everything works even better, I would say. It's again, I would say it's not only tooling agnostic, but it's process agnostic as well. Now you not only know that it's written in JavaScript, but you also know that why we have chosen and how we are doing it to some extent. You have seen the whole Git diff based package creation as well. So you have seen that whole Delta package creation, artifact and everything. You have seen deployment and validation along with the test classes running. So I was running all the test classes if you have seen. Couldn't show you a scheduled runner, obviously due to time constraints and scratch awk creation and second generation managed packaging. But yeah, all this is pretty much there. And even there are more things like I'm nowhere mentioning about the notifications, and there are so many other nice things as well. And yes, I was able to show two of the features from metadata retrieval. One is the full call retrieval, which I was using. And in the very beginning, I did a change set retrieval. So yes, so with this, I really want to highlight one more thing, that what it is not. So GS DevOps Mate is not a full-fledged CI/CD or a managed service, which means you need someone who knows how to manage or how to configure these CI/CD services or any one of them, or eager to learn that. But at the same time, sometimes I think that many of the toolings we have, which are targeted towards Salesforce CI/CD, they have their own learning curve as well. So, and those skills probably are not full cross-platform as well. So why not learn some skills which are cross-platform, or even you can use some cross-platform skills from some other DevOps people. So that's a great thing. it is more suited for teams that are comfortable with Git. Now you may be thinking, I have shown that whole change set thing, but what about scratch logs? Yeah, with DevOps centers, things can change. We also have some plans to make it a little more to support something for scratch logs as well. But yes, and also change sets don't support all the metadata. So yes, you have to rely on whatever ID or things. So it's more suited for teams which are comfortable with Git and all. It doesn't have its own UI. So yes, it doesn't have its own UI to select changed components and things like that. And also it doesn't have its own UI in terms of managing those pipelines, configuring pipelines, watching them and all those things. And actually there was a conscious reason why we have done it the way it is. And the reason is, this is the current state of DevOps Mate right now. So it can be run on any of these services or even more. Because many of them even support Docker as a first-class citizen. So which means they don't even expose a VM or anything. They just are. You just have to refer Docker image, and just as long as you are referencing GS DevOps Mate, that's it. So all these services comes with a lot of things which we need not to worry about, like access management and security. Yes, they come with it. Integrations with version control systems like Bitbucket, GitHub, or even any HTTPS or SSH based Git repo, or many of these services just gives you out of the box. So yes, and they give you integrations in terms of webhooks when something is changed. Call this pipeline, this, that. All this has been taken care by these tools. So yeah, we need not to worry about it. We can really focus on some of the problems which are very specific to Salesforce. They give you nice UI, so that's why we didn't give any UI as well to manage these pipelines. And probably if you want to have very specific UI to configure these pipelines YAML, yeah, we would love to get your feedback on that. And yes, then yes, artifacts management, you have seen how it provides nice artifact management as well. Then it has many of these CI/CD services, gives you the notification integration with notification services, not only with Slack, but email notifications, then notifications with tools like PagerDuty for monitoring and things. So with all this, I think if your IT or DevOps team, or if your team is already using any of these CI/CD services or thinking of it, I think you are really in a good position to harness GS DevOps Mate to its full glory and even contribute towards it. So now the question is how we are going to enable you in this journey. So yes, you can find this public repo, all the source code and everything. There is a Docker Hub image as well. Just beware of the fact, recently Docker Hub for public images, there is this limit. So yeah, you can get this image, put it on your own private repo or private Docker Hub registry or some other public registry, completely up to you. And Docker Hub registries are really cheap, like $5 a month or something, even if you want to use a private one. We have plans to post a series of blog posts because I'm just really not covering anything. I'm feeling like I'm not doing justice talking at such a high level about this tool, because there are so many things which I have to tell so that you guys should be able to contribute. So, but yes, the first blog post is here. Very soon the second one is coming, and then a lot more about how to configure and then even how to extend it. If you're going to face any issue, feel free to raise a feature request on GitHub. Feel free to raise a GitHub issue. Keep watching our GitHub space for new features and enhancements, because we have plans. You can watch it. You can read it in the readme.md. That there is a good roadmap as well. But yes, you are not stuck by us or anything. This being open source, feel free to fork it. Feel free to extend it the way you want, use it the way you want, and then if you feel that it is something worth putting it back, feel free to again raise a pull request, and you would be more than happy to accept it. And last, follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn for more such cool things. We are doing here a lot of really awesome things in the Salesforce space here in Groundswell and ecosystem around it. So I think I really want to end this my talk about this thing with a thank you note, because we have benefited a lot from this awesome community, and this is one of our thank you gestures, both from myself and this fantastic employer of mine, Groundswell. to say thank you to this community, and we will keep doing it, keep watching. We will be doing things around it, and some other things are also in line. I think with this, we are really in a good position to talk about some of the questions and answers. So yes, let me see. Can I see any questions here? Yes, there might be. So okay, I can see Patrick is asking a question, and then first question is by SFDX Cloud. With Docker registry, is it not complex to configure runners, etc.? That depends. I think this is specific to, I have this kind of experience with GitLab, where you have to configure runners. But as I said, many other services like Bitbucket pipelines, CodeFresh, Circle CI, it's just like Azure DevOps even. I said there is just one, I have to do one configuration, and then it's super easy. So just few lines in your YAML, and you would be just pulling this image and firing all the commands inside. So yes, if it's GitLab, it's a little complex, but otherwise, I have seen it really working well with all these services which supports Docker as a build runtime, and most of them do. So I hope that answers your question, SFDX Cloud. Now, the next question is, okay, Patrick is asking, could you explain how you handle permissions with the chain set retrieval approach? Yes, that's again something which is, so right now, frankly speaking, we are not doing anything with profiles. So that answers probably Deepak's question as well. And we are kind of thinking on a line where a little opinionated here as well, that yes, profiles are kind of a weird metadata, and it's difficult, but at the same time, Salesforce is pushing towards permission sets. So what we say is, I mean, if you're working on net new project, you probably rely on permission sets. But if you see that profiles are also something which you have to take care of, which needs to be taken care of, I would like to see that kind of a feature request or something. And if I see, definitely we would love to solve that problem as well. So that's about it. And I think, how could you explain, how would you handle permissions with the chain set retrieval approach? No, we are not doing that, as I said, Patrick. So because yeah, you can add the permissions, but I'm sure when you retrieve, the permissions didn't come. So that's not something which it has. So yes, it's more like, as long as I said earlier, it relies on your mostly this tool is for teams who are comfortable with committing directly from their ID and all. So as long as you are committing those permissions in the form of permission sets and all from your ID, it will consider. So this tool comes into picture once your changes are actually in the repo. That's where it kicks off, and that's where it has a lot of these things to make things easier. So that's what it is. I don't see any other questions. I believe. Okay, let me see. Yep, I think I have managed to answer these questions. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. This slide deck we will be sharing soon, and then you would be you would be having all these links where you can access this. Thanks a lot.